Hey everyone, we know how hard it can be to keep up with the latest news in Israel, so if you haven't had the time to stay on top of what's what in the Holy Land with ILTV, have no worries. It's time for our new show this week in Israel, where we'll give you the scoop on everything you need to know about the last 7 days right from Tel Aviv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, here to keep you informed.
Last night's deadly escalation of violence along the Gaza border has carried over into today. Israel's Iron Dome has just intercepted another rocket fired from the Strip, the 9th projectile fired at Israeli territory in the last 12 hours. Hamas's military wing has mobilized for combat ahead of the growing possibility of war. The group has sworn revenge for the clashes last night, which claimed the lives of at least 3 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Israel carried out those airstrikes after Palestinian snipers opened fire on a group of IDF soldiers stationed along the border. One Israeli soldier was wounded by gunfire and immediately rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. This is all merely the latest back and forth of violence between Palestinians in Gaza and Israel. Less than a week ago, an IDF soldier was killed by sniper fire from Gaza, triggering an intense round of Israeli airstrikes that pummeled dozens of Hamas targets in the Strip. Both sides then carefully backed away from the precipice of an all-out war, but that relative calm has clearly been broken now, leaving many wondering if this dance of violence is spiraling inevitably into an unstoppable war. Well, the Knesset's recent passage of the nation-state bill remains one of the more contentious issues in modern Israeli history. While supporters hailed this law for enshrining the country's Jewish identity into its core basic laws, critics say that it's tantamount to a legalization of apartheid because it sets a legal ground for systematic discrimination against nearly 2 million non-Jews who live in the country. That minority includes Israel's unique Druze community, which serves in the IDF and does social service despite not being Jewish. Well, in something of an admission of errors here, the Knesset has convened a special meeting today with Druze leaders to discuss atoning for any damage caused by the bill to the Druze community. Prime Minister Netanyahu summoned this meeting himself, though sources close to the Prime Minister's office say that any rewriting of the law is out of the question for now. The hearing will more likely address alternative means to put water under the bridge, but 2 Israeli ministers have already admitted that a mistake may have been made in the Knesset's hurry to pass the legislation, at least with respect to the Druze community. Education Minister Naftali Bennett says that after hearing the Druze side of the story, he agrees that the government must heal wounds caused by the text of the bill, wounds that he says were completely accidental. This sentiment was just echoed by Finance Minister Moshe Kachlon, who admitted on Army radio that, quote, "The enactment of the nation-state law was done hastily. We were wrong, and we need to fix it," end quote. There are over 150,000 Druze currently living in Israel. Their religious and cultural practices vary from region to region all over the world, but it has roots primarily in Islam. The community in Israel speaks both Hebrew and Arabic and is integrated throughout the country while also retaining local village lifestyles and customs. They are a small but beautiful slice of the incredibly diverse Israeli population. For some, the only wish for today's meeting would be that it included members from other communities who also feel somewhat betrayed by the nation-state law and who worry about their future in the state of Israel. Things may be developing quickly on the Syrian front, faster than previously suspected. Earlier this morning, 2 short-range ballistic missiles were fired from Syrian airspace at Israeli territory, triggering Israeli defense systems. In perhaps a related bit of breaking news, Russia's foreign minister has just arrived in Israel for a surprise visit to discuss top-level security issues with Prime Minister Netanyahu.
אני אפגש היום עם משלחת בראשות שר החוץ של רוסיה סרגי לברוב ורמטכ"ל צבא רוסיה גרסימוב. המשלחת מגיעה לבקשתו של הנשיא פוטין בשיחה שהוא קיים איתי לפני ימים אחדים. אני אדון עמה בסוגיות אזוריות ובראשן המצב בסוריה. אני אציג למשלחת הרוסית את העמדה שהצגתי בפני הנשיא פוטין בביקורי האחרון במוסקבה. ישראל עומדת על כך שהסכמי ההפרדה בינה לבין סוריה יכובדו כפי שכובדו במשך עשרות שנים עד פרוץ מלחמת האזרחים בסוריה. וישראל תמשיך לפעול נגד כל ניסיון של איראן וגרורותיה להתבסס צבאית בסוריה.
Lavrov's arrival comes mere hours after Israel's new defense system, David Sling, attempted to intercept the ballistic threat from Syria. Ultimately, both missiles fell short of their targets and detonated inside Syrian territory. At first, there was quite a bit of confusion, and most initially believed that this was merely a false alarm. But the army later confirmed that a threat had indeed been launched from Syrian airspace. This may very well be a kind of retaliation to an alleged Israeli airstrike on a Syrian military base last night. Regardless, Lavrov and Netanyahu will have plenty to discuss in today's meeting. Well, another round of airstrikes have just pummeled a Syrian base with links to Iranian forces. The fourth such attack this month. Israeli fighter jets were reported flying over Lebanese airspace en route to this facility, though as usual, the IDF has neither confirmed nor denied involvement in these alleged airstrikes. Regardless, the site of the attack is said to be a crucial weapons production plant for Iranian forces in the region. Proxy forces from Hezbollah are also known to frequent the base as well. This is the same facility where Syrian regime forces reportedly manufactured and stored deadly sarin gas used to carry out horrific war crimes against innocent civilians, though it's unclear if the site is still used for such purposes today. What is known is that Iran uses this base to build surface-to-air missiles and operates under the Scientific Studies and Research branch of the Syrian government. This airstrike was carried out in the late evening before nightfall, something of an outlier in Israeli attack strategy, which usually revolves around the cover of night. Videos posted to social media seem to suggest that Syrian air defense batteries were able to deflect a good portion of the attack, but smoke rising from the site does seem to indicate that at least some of the attack did land direct hits.
Tragic news over the weekend. IDF Staff Sergeant Aviv Levy, an infantry soldier in the Givati Brigade, has been killed when Palestinian snipers opened fire on Israeli troops along the Gaza border. This marks the first time that an Israeli soldier has been killed on the Gaza front since the 2014 war, Operation Protective Edge, and Israel has launched a devastating retaliation on Hamas targets in retaliation to this tragic incident. For now, there is an uneasy calm, but make no mistake, this is by far the closest to war that we've been in the last 4 years.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has offered his condolences to the family of fallen soldier Aviv Levy. Levy was 21 years old at the time of his death, and he was wearing bulletproof armor when he was struck by a bullet from a Palestinian sniper, and initially only considered seriously wounded, but unfortunately his condition quickly worsened and his health decayed too rapidly to undo the damage. As you can imagine, this death opened a chilling new reality to the quickly escalating crisis brewing on the Gaza front. IDF forces struck some 60 Hamas targets in the Strip in retaliation to the news of Staff Sergeant Levy's death. 4 Palestinians, including 3 confirmed Hamas members, were killed in those attacks. Egypt reportedly pressured Hamas not to retaliate any further, warning the terror leaders that Israel would launch an all-out war in 2 hours if Hamas proceeded with escalation. This allegedly included the halting of incendiary kite and balloon attacks.
هناك جهود مصرية أممية بذلت في إطار العودة للتفاهمات السابقة. نحن في حركة حماس والمقاومة الفلسطينية بكافة فصائلها ملتزمة بحالة الهدوء وملتزمة بما تم التفاهم عليه، ولكن مصير هذه التفاهمات ستحكم عليها الأيام المقبلة من خلال سلوك الاحتلال الإسرائيلي على الأرض، ولكن في النهاية من حقنا أن ندافع، من حقنا أن نرد، من حقنا أن نحمي الشعب الفلسطيني.
Israel has not publicly confirmed nor denied any such ceasefire deal, but regardless, it's been more than 24 hours since that deal apparently emerged, and things have been relatively calm. But with blood spilt on both sides now, the region may stand on the precipice of war like never before. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres has demanded Hamas step back from violence to avoid such a fate. For now, time will tell if the war is indeed on the horizon.
ולכן המסר שלי לתושבי עזה, אחריות ומפתח בין היתר זה הלחץ שאתם תושבי עזה תפעילו להנהגת החמאס. אם היום ומחר יימשך המצב כפי שהיה אתמול, אז יום שלישי נחזיר כאן בכרם שלום את החיים למתכונת הרגילה וגם במרחב הדייג נחזיר לאותם מרחקים כפי שהיה קודם.
And now, following this week's dramatic escalation of tensions along the Syrian border, Israel has reportedly refused a Russian offer to keep Iranian forces some 60 miles away from Israel's front door. According to officials, Israel is demanding that exactly 0 Iranian forces be allowed anywhere in Syria, period. A red line that's driving a wedge between Israeli-Russian relations.
News of this offer and consequent rejection of it surfaced shortly after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made an unannounced visit to meet with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Their meeting comes on the heels of a flashpoint of violence between Israel and Syrian-Iranian forces. Yesterday, 2 medium-range missiles were fired at Israel from Syrian airspace, though neither reached Israeli territory. 36 hours prior to that, Israel reportedly conducted airstrikes on a Syrian missile factory with links to both Hezbollah and Iran. Moscow has played a crucial role in Syria for the last several years, helping Assad's forces hunt down and destroy the rebel factions within its country's border, a tactic that has often amounted to accusations of grotesque war crimes and genocide of civilians. Regardless, Israel has invested heavily in an alliance with Russia to protect its own security interests as Iran continues to entrench forces in the destabilized region.
והמילה האחרונה רק להגיד שאני ערכתי את הדברים שנאמרו על ידי הנשיא פוטין יחד עם הנשיא טראמפ לגבי ביטחון ישראל במהלך הפסגה האחרונה.
This comes at a time when a war between Iran and the United States has never seemed more likely. The latest war of words, or more accurately tweets, between United States President Donald Trump and Iranian President Rouhani has threatened to explode into a whole new cross-regional conflict. Israeli efforts to keep Iran off its northern border is easily the army's #1 mission, but for now 60 miles is still too close for comfort given the regime's stated objective to wipe out the Jewish state.
This has been quite the turbulent week for Israel, with threats on 2 fronts that have threatened to boil over into all-out war. Syria has vowed revenge for the downing of one of its fighter jets yesterday after it breached Israeli airspace, triggering Israel's anti-aircraft defense systems. We've confirmed that the pilot in the plane was killed in the crash, but Israel's ambassador to the United Nations says that Israel actually attempted to contact the pilot before shooting down his aircraft.
מערכות ההגנה האווירית שלנו זיהו מטוס של חיל האוויר הסורי, ממריא מבסיס חיל האוויר הסורי T4 וחודר לשטח ישראל. זו הפרה בוטה של הסכמי ההפרדה בינינו ובין סוריה מ-1974. ואני חזרתי והבהרתי שלא נקבל שום הפרה כזאת. לא נקבל שום חדירה ושום זליגה לשטחנו, לא מהקרקע ולא מהאוויר. וכוחותינו פעלו בהתאם. אנחנו עומדים על כך שסוריה תכבד בקפדנות את הסכמי ההפרדה בינינו לבינה.
Needless to say, this incident is the most explosive yet in the ongoing clash of tensions on the Israel-Syrian front. Israel hasn't shot down a Syrian fighter jet in a number of years, but security officials say that regardless of what the pilot's reasons were, this outcome was the only one possible once his plane breached Israeli airspace. Though Syrian officials have condemned Israel's actions and promised that a response is coming soon enough, the front lines are relatively calm 24 hours later. Things have similarly resumed an eerie calm on the Gaza border despite clashes earlier this week that very nearly erupted into conflict. Last weekend, Palestinian snipers in the Strip targeted and killed an IDF soldier on the border. Israel retaliated by pummeling dozens of Hamas targets within the Gaza Strip. According to the United Nations Middle East envoy, both sides were literally minutes away from an all-out war. Mideast envoy Nikolai Mladenov has warned that regardless of the current ceasefire, the situation is rapidly deteriorating, and a stray spark may be all it takes to engulf the region into a war.
Israel has been providing direct humanitarian aid to Syrians impacted by the civil war for years now, but nothing like this. The army has just launched an unprecedented covert operation and evacuated hundreds of Syrians from the war zone, and this includes some 800 members of the White Helmets, a volunteer group consisting of search and rescue workers who have operated in the most horrific regions of Syria over the last 4 years.
The IDF has confirmed the evacuation, which took place under the cover of night over the weekend. Army officials have even admitted that this is something of an out-of-the-ordinary operation by Israeli standards. But with President Assad's forces pummeling southern Syria like never before, these hundreds of civil defense workers were in immediate danger. The United States and Europe collaborated together to help Israel conduct the rescue operation. Jordan has agreed to accept all 800 members of the White Helmets and their families, who will be safely relocated to the UK, Canada, and Germany in the coming months. Israel's Operation Good Neighbor has seen literally tons of aid taken behind enemy lines into Syria to help families devastated by the war. Israel has even treated thousands of Syrians within Israeli territory with medical aid. But this overnight rescue is a truly unique and compelling example of Israeli humanitarian relief. The White Helmets have conducted hundreds of rescue operations in some of the deadliest Syrian war zones since 2014. The group says they've saved more than 114,000 lives and lost more than 200 of their own members.
A new poll shows that across the political spectrum, the majority of Israelis support the LGBTQ+ community's access to surrogacy and other parental rights. The poll was conducted by Midgam and has a margin of error of 4.2%, but the results show that at least 56% of the public supports the recent LGBT protests.
This number includes 51% of Likud voters, 58% of the religious Jewish Home Party, and well over 80% for the opposition parties like Yesh Atid and the Zionist Union. Additionally, 2 new petitions that were heard in the High Court of Justice earlier this week have garnered the support of Attorney General Mandelblit. The petitions demand the rights to have both parents of a same-sex couple registered on birth certificates and papers for adopted children. Mandelblit said that not allowing this until now hurts equality and doesn't serve a worthy purpose. Interior Minister Aryeh Deri, who heads the ultra-Orthodox Shas party, is against the move, however. He explained that there is no violation of equality and there is no practical purpose to the petitioner's request, except for a symbolic recognition of their relationship. Deri also added an argument in semantics, saying that, quote, 2 fathers shouldn't be registered on the birth certificate because the certificate's purpose is to reflect the factual situation at the time of birth. In addition, the certificate's form only allows room for the names of the mother and the father, end quote. Mandelblit's counter-arguments still weigh heavy, though. As he explained, we aren't dealing with single-sex couples' adoption rights, since it was made legal in 2008. We are only dealing with the registration of same-sex couples on the birth certificate, and not allowing the registration of both parents may harm a minor whose well-being is of a major concern, as well as the parent who will not be registered as such in the birth certificate. This is unjustified.
Yesterday, we reported on the condition of the Western Wall in Jerusalem when a piece of the wall spontaneously crumbled off of the structure, crashing down on the ground below. As it turns out, a Jerusalem resident was praying just feet from where the 200-plus-pound rock landed, and now experts apparently believe that the entire Kotel may indeed be decaying at a potentially dangerous pace. Obviously, yesterday's incident was quite a bit more dangerous than initially diagnosed. 79-year-old Daniela Goldberg was praying at the Kotel like she always does when disaster struck literally right next to her.
ב-5:46 בדקה הזאת אני רואה אבן ענקית. לא שמעתי, לא הרגשתי כלום עד שהאבן נחתה ממש ליד הרגליים שלי, והיה חור גדול כמו שרואים ברצפה, זה מין, איך קוראים לזה, דק, וגם אפילו נשברו קרשים של המדרגות שמובילים לדק הזה, ולא הבנתי מאיפה זה נפל, והסתכלתי גבוה גבוה, הכל שלם למעלה.
This incident sparked a thorough investigation of the Western Wall's structural integrity, though multiple theories are still circulating as to exactly why this rock jettisoned from the rest of the wall. One consensus is clear: natural erosion is at play. But the problem may be much worse than expected. The head archaeologist of the Temple Mount Sifting Project believes that the entire wall is nothing short of a danger zone, one that threatens to collapse altogether if the proper preservation isn't initiated. But that kind of work is easier said than done. The Western Wall is one of the oldest and most cherished relics of all of Judaism, the last remains of the Second Temple from ancient Jerusalem.
אנחנו מדברים על מבנה בן 2000 שנה, שיש לו תהליך של בליה טבעית עם מפגעי טבע, וכאן גם אתה רואה מאחורינו את הבליה שנגרמת כתוצאה מצמחייה, כתוצאה מרטיבות. אנחנו לא יודעים להגיד במדויק ממה הדבר הזה קרה. נדרשת פעילות תחזוקה שוטפת שמדינת ישראל חייבת להקצות לזה משאבים אם הנכס הזה חשוב לה.
Jerusalem Deputy Mayor Dov Kalmanovich, however, is taking this incident into a bit of a different direction. According to him, the incident is a spiritual sign from above because the rock fell in a section of the Kotel reserved for pluralistic mixed-gender prayer. And so Kalmanovich claims that this is tantamount to God telling Reform Jews to stay away from the wall altogether. He says, quote, I suggest that Reform leaders, Women of the Wall, and the other quarrel mongers examine themselves and not the wall, end quote. Those remarks aside, experts are seeking a way to keep the holy relic safe for all visitors and to ensure that it stays that way for centuries to come.
Here now with a new batch of songs gets stuck in your head for the weekend is ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh with this week's Top 5. Take it away, Emmanuel.
Israeli music, much like the rest of the country, is pretty hard to define. It's made up of different cultures, genres, and styles. That's why I'm here to update you guys on the top 5 hit Israeli songs you must know before traveling to the Holy Land. First up is probably going to be the most obvious one, Toy by the 2018 Israeli Eurovision winner Netta Barzilai. This song was voted the #1 entry even before the actual Eurovision televised event, which shouldn't come as too much of a shock. It's as if the whole world knew, including Israelis of course, that this empowering, upbeat, and very catchy song was going to be the next big hit. And it was. We're not anybody's toy. Second up, if you ever hear the song Tel Aviv by Omer Adam, then you should know that there are at least 1 or 2 Israelis in the building. And if you're hearing the song at a club or a bar here in Israel, prepare for everyone to be shouting and screaming along with the lyrics. Released back in 2013, created in order to promote Tel Aviv's Pride Parade, as well as snuck in some Israeli LGBTQ slang words, the song solely focuses on showing off how absolutely amazing, energetic, and good vibes the city of Tel Aviv truly is. But like I always say, don't take my word for it, come check it out for yourself. Third on our list is by the stylish duo Static and Ben El Tavori with the song Tudo Bom, which means everything's good in Portuguese, and it is. This was last year's summer hit that broke records on Israeli radio stations. The duo can be seen all up and down the Israeli song charts, attracting not just girls, but guys all over the country reciting their lyrics word for word. And I can't say I'm not one of them, but again, Tudo Bom, it's all good. As true tourists, you've got to be updated with all the hit songs, especially the ones that incorporate English. That's why number 4 on our list is Golden Boy by Nadav Gage. This song was the 2015 Israeli entry for the Eurovision and was the first Israeli entry with lyrics entirely in English. The song finished in 9th place in the grand finale and has since become a phrase you can often hear Israelis and international Jews singing and saying often, "I'm a golden boy." Last but definitely not least is the song Hi Rak Rotza Lirkod, or in English, She Just Wants to Dance, by Israeli singers Moshe Peretz and Omer Adam. This song is fun, upbeat collab between 2 of the top artists in Israel at the moment, and is showing off the fun and exciting, upbeat lifestyle that Israelis are all about. Basically saying no matter where we are, Israelis just love to dance. That's all for today's Top 5. Back to you.
That's it for this week's Roundup. Tune in next Friday for our next episode of This Week in Israel. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from Tel Aviv.